Yahoo Fantasy Baseball Tucson Toros group. This is your Week 15 video. We're going to do something a little bit different here. Obviously, Major League Baseball was in their All-Star Week this week. That had a big impact on fantasy baseball, as the fantasy games were decided by games that were played from Thursday to Sunday only. So there were 3 less days to the week. Kind of led to some quirky results. We'll talk a little bit about that, but thought it would be a good chance to go ahead and take a look at the league, where everything stands now, and talk about the playoff run coming up here, as there's only 7 weeks left in the season, and there's plenty of space left to be made up for a lot of teams. Lots of teams in a real tight pack in the middle of the group. We'll talk a little bit about that. But let's first get to the Week 15 results, discuss what went down in Week 15 action. The big story, Twice as Nice, has run the table through every other team in the league. At this point in the season, everybody has played everybody once. There's 7 weeks left to go, and Twice as Nice has yet to lose a matchup, knocking off Jimmy Dugan 5-4-1 in a rematch of last year's championship game. It was a very tight battle, but Twice as Nice wound up coming out with the victory there. In other important action, AZ Padres squeaked out a win over Hunt 1981, 5-4-1 between 2 of the top 6 teams in the league. Then we had a bunch of blowouts as well. We want to talk about that. The bottom 3 teams in the standings were swept pretty much. Greek Thunder knocked off Bronx Bombers 8-0-2 this week. Grassy Knoll knocked off Woodla's 9-0-1, and Tucson's Prettiest out of nowhere knocked off Lucky 9-0-1. So definite separation amongst the top 10 teams, I would say, and the rest of the field. In other action, though, you had Koufax's Revenge knocking off Derek Low equals Cheater 6-2-2, and kind of an unusual score. You're going to get that during All-Star Week, though, with fewer games being played. Really not as much opportunity for impact to be made throughout the course of the week. Your pitchers aren't going to pitch twice. A lot fewer appearances out of the bullpen for your relief pitchers. Some of your starters maybe took an extra day off following the All-Star break to recover from injuries, so that definitely impacted things. And then the other 2 matchups, we had a tie between Waveland Sheffield and Otis and the Drunks. Those 2 teams, 7th and 8th in the standings, split their matchup, so nothing was really decided there. And then Metropolitans knocked off the Androids 5-3-2. So it was really matchups were ties or near ties or complete blowouts throughout the league. Let's just take a look, though, at the standings as they stand now. We haven't really discussed that in detail previously, but Twice as Nice holds an 8.5 game lead over the rest of the field. 8.5 games over Grassy Knoll, who sits second right now. Twice as Nice is now at 100 victories, 45 losses, and 5 ties as far as categories go. That's a 68% winning percentage. That's fantastic at this point in the season. Has definitely run roughshod over the rest of the league. Then second and third, kind of a group of their own there. Grassy Knoll has really come on strong. The 9-0-1 defeat of Woodla's definitely helps the cause there. Helped gain 4 games on Twice as Nice this week. So Grassy Knoll sits second. And then Greek Thunder, who's been really strong all season long, knocking off the bad teams. Not necessarily some of the good teams, but absolutely destroying the bad teams. Sits third in the standings now, 14.5 games out of first place. Then 4th to 10th is completely up in the air. Looking at that, 4th place, AZ Padres is 19 games back. 10th place, Tucson's Prettiest, is 25.5 games back. So from those teams there, you're looking at a separation of, let's see, 6.5 games separating 4th through 10th. So a lot can still happen, especially looking at the fact that 4th through 10th, all those teams, with the exception of Tucson's Prettiest, who reemerges as a possible contender, 4th through 9th all had scores of 5 or 4 this week in the win column. So that big group of teams is really going to have to fight here in the final 7 weeks of the season. AZ Padres leads that group with 19.5 games out of first place, sitting 4th, but just a half game up on 5th and 6th, and just 3 games up on 7th. So plenty of opportunity to fall out of the top 6 to make those playoffs, but also plenty of opportunity to lead the pack as the season comes to a close. 5th and 6th, Jimmy Dugan and Hunt 1981 both tied for that 5th spot at 19.5 games out. They are a game and a half ahead of, I'm sorry, yeah, let me, 20, 13, 20 and a half. Yeah, game and a half. Make sure I got my math there right. A game and a half ahead of Otis and the Drunks, who's 21 games out of first place. But just a game and a half out of the playoffs, and that's all that matters is postseason play. Once you get there, you just got to beat that team that 1 week to get things done there. 7th in the standings, Otis and the Drunks is 1 game ahead of Waveland and Sheffield, who sits 8th. Those two teams have both flirted with the top 6 as well, so very strong contenders. Then we got a couple of teams sitting 9th and 10th who aren't really active on the waiver wire, aren't really active with their rosters, but have pretty good teams and have had some solid victories here in the 2010 season. The Metropolitans is 23.5 games out of first place, but only 4 games out of the playoffs. So that team's still very much in it. And then Tucson's Prettiest. This is a team that was absolutely dominant, is the only team to force a tie with Twice as Nice. Twice as Nice has beaten every other team with a win. Tucson's Prettiest actually managed a tie, but fell completely off the radar in the last month or two and has actually bounced back as of late. Got a 9-0-1 victory in Week 15 action, and now is 10th in the standings, 25.5 out of first, but only 6 games out of 6th, so can still do a lot of damage. Then you're going to have a bit of a stretch. It's another 5.5 back to 11th place, Koufax's Revenge, who's up 7 on 12th place, the Androids. There is probably going to be a fight for that 12th spot between the Androids and Derek Low equals Cheater. They're separated by just 2 games, and Koufax's Revenge has been up and down all season as well, so anything can really happen there. But once you get past Derek Low equals Cheater, it's downright ugly. Bronx Bombers is 50.5 games out of first place, 10.5 out of 13th. Then a game behind that is Lucky, 51.5 out of first, and Woodla's 56 games out of first place. And just by comparison, 18 games out of 12th. So those 3 teams at the bottom are really bringing things down. It's allowed 10 teams to have an over 500 record at this point in the season. So just want to say to everybody, there's 7 weeks left in the season. You got to play hard, finish hard here. There's a lot still at stake. The 6 playoff spots are by no means a lock yet. Nobody's locked down any playoff spots. So there's still a lot out there that can be had. Plus, we've got the consolation playoffs for 7th through 12th. So if you don't hit that top 6, you come home in 10th, you can still wind up getting credit for 7th if you play hard all the way to the end. So definitely a lot going to happen here in the final 6 weeks of the season. Let's just preview Week 16 for you real quick. Jimmy Dugan's going to be taking on Otis and the Drunks. That's a very important matchup. Hunt 1981 gets a bit of a breather, taking on bottom feeder Bronx Bombers. Greek Thunder going to have to take on the last place team. Greek's been excellent against bad teams this year, so taking on last place Woodla's this week should be piece of cake for Greek. Grassy Knoll's going to be taking on 13th place Derek Low equals Cheater, so this already looks like it's going to be a pretty good week for some of the top teams in the league. Koufax's Revenge is hoping to maybe creep their way into that top 10 picture, maybe making an 11-team race, taking on Lucky, who's at the bottom of the league as well. Waveland and Sheffield's going to try to get some momentum coming off the tie with 7th place Otis and the Drunks. Going to be taking on Tucson's Prettiest, who's still trying to carry some of that returning momentum. Twice as Nice is going to put that undefeated streak on the line against the Androids. And AZ Padres and Metropolitans are going to take on each other. This is a very important matchup for both teams as they are on opposite ends of that pack and could really muddy the field with an interesting outcome. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. We hope to see you back for a full recap next week. Same old next week. We're going to talk about all the matchups in Week 16 action next Monday.